My name is Maria Jelliker. Welcome to my show, Let's Talk About History. I'm here with my guest, Dale Plummer, and we're going to be talking about the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And also, the Faith Trumbull chapter here in Norwich, Connecticut is celebrating the 130th anniversary. And I hope you enjoy my show. All right, so first of all, I'd like to talk about, there's a blog on the Library of Congress. You can show that photo real quick. In 2026, just 2 years from now, we will be commemorating the United States semi-quincentennial and the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The Library of Congress, along with other federal agencies, will be taking part in this commemoration. We will be starting our great insights from our incredible staff and inviting you to discover the Library of Congress for yourself. In the lead up to the milestone, the America 250th Commission has launched America's Invitation, a nationwide campaign for all Americans to share stories and hopes and dreams for our future. America's Invitation is an opportunity for Americans across the country from every background to take part in reflecting on our past and looking to the future by sharing their stories and the things they love about America as we continue to strive for a more perfect union. Taking part in America's Invitation is easy. Visit stories.america250.org to share photos, videos, artwork, essays, songs, poems, or anything else that highlights what America means to you in videos, on social media, and more. Together, these contributions will highlight what makes America unique and ensure we are building a commemoration that includes all of us. For some inspiration, you might enjoy this Form the Vaults episode from the Dunlop broadside. The first printing of the Declaration of Independence was printed throughout the night of July 4th, 1776. This is how the text of the Declaration was first sent out into the world. And if you're looking for more about the history of the Declaration of Independence, we have you covered. Over the next 2 years, America 250 will continue to host commemorative events across the country. To learn more, visit america250.org and follow the Commission on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So, Dale, do you have any thoughts about celebrating in 2026 the Declaration, the 250th anniversary?
Well, it's a huge thing. You know, it's certainly a major event in world history. It really owes its I think its basis to the ideas of the Enlightenment, of reason and so forth. It was written as a justification for the revolution, but also enshrined in it principles such as all men are created equal, which we've been arguing about to some extent for the last 250 years. But it certainly, I think, did set us apart as a nation to have that as our basic document. And in fact, it was reprinted in the Norwich Courier. No, excuse me, I think it's the Norwich Packet. Shortly thereafter. And the irony of it is, here's the document that says all men are created equal, yet there are advertisements for escapees from slavery in the same newspaper. So, I think we had sort of a built-in contradiction from the very beginning of the country as an independent country. But certainly a cause for great celebration.
Mm. Do you know of any way that people can get involved? I know that the Norwich Historical Society is going to be having, for 2026, leading up to
Right.
this August, there's going to be a memorial at the French soldiers' grave that people can get involved in. And there'll be other memorials and ceremonies leading up. So be on the lookout for activities that everyone can participate in to celebrate the 250th anniversary. So I'd like to mention also that it is the 130th anniversary for the Faith Trumbull chapter here in Norwich, Connecticut on Rockwell Street. And let's see, Faith Trumbull chapter was organized on November 23rd, 1893 in Norwich, Connecticut. The chapter was named for Faith Robinson Trumbull, who married Jonathan Trumbull in 1735. From the beginning, the women wanted to preserve the history of their families in the city of Norwich. This vision was further realized when the chapter was allowed to purchase the Perkins Rockwell House from Mary Watkinson Rockwell, Cole, for the sum of $1. The house was presented to the chapter by Mrs. Cole in 1934 with the words, "And so because of our love for Norwich, the Rose of New England, which has been fostered by the loyal friendships of many generations, it seemed to me that we of this generation would take pleasure in having these stone walls harbor the best traditions of New England. I take great satisfaction in thinking that this house will be used in a dignified way, that under its roof these Americans will be displayed and gatherings of public-spirited women will be held from time to time. The historic collections begun when the chapter was organized finally had a home. Today the museum also includes the Nathaniel Backus House, which was moved next door to the Perkins Rockwell House in 1952. Can you have any, history about Faith Trumbull and?
Well, I think the thing is that the chapter is actually named for Faith Robinson Trumbull, wife of Jonathan Trumbull. Her daughter married Jedediah Huntington, a general in the Revolution, an important figure, and I think they sometimes get confused. But the daughter was witness. Faith Trumbull, the wife of Jedediah Trumbull, was witness to the Battle of Bunker Hill. She's a person very accomplished, a painter, apparently inspired her younger brother, John Trumbull, to take up painting, and did some wonderful needlepoint and so forth. But she became depressed after the Battle of Bunker Hill, and despite her family's efforts to treat that, she committed suicide on November 24th, 1775.
Faith Robinson Trumbull's daughter.
Yes.
She married Huntington. How old was she when she died?
I think she must have been in her 30s, perhaps early 40s. She was young. You know, I think I just read the National Park Service material on that, and they said that, you know, we often think of the victims of war simply as being the soldiers that fought in them, but, you know, civilians,
It
witnesses
affects
like
the
her.
family members.
Exactly. And of course, you know, suicide is a terrible problem today among, you know, veterans of our more recent wars. And apparently that has always been the case. You know, it's something
Yeah,
that
the
really
soldiers who fought in the war.
exactly. It
Yeah.
exacts a terrible price that, you know, sometimes years later, you know,
Yeah.
the effect is felt. So it's a sobering thought. But, you know, it also, you know, shows that women were present. Women were witnesses to all these events. Women were supportive of the revolution. Many of them, you know, played an important role in the American Revolution. And don't forget that when, what was it, John Adams' wife, Abigail, who said to John Adams, don't forget the women when they're writing the
Yeah.
Constitution.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I was just reading that recently. I was trying to remember what exactly I was reading about that. That, you know, women's rights.
exactly.
Yeah.
And there was a real, you know, 1780s, 1790s,
That all men were created equal. They didn't say in women.
Right.
Well, you know, they said all men.
but women
But it-
certainly were interested in many of, and very involved politically, and were asking for rights. You know, those didn't really come about until much later, but there was certainly always an interest. And of course, you know, African Americans too fought in the Revolution.
Yeah.
Many of them
And
were-
so did American Indians.
Right, exactly.
We have a chapter member who, her she proved through DAR her lineage to an American Indian in Massachusetts.
Exactly. And, you know, the interesting thing is that in the case of African Americans, their reward for risking their lives in the Revolution, fighting for the Revolution, was freedom. So they were quite literally fighting for freedom, not only for the country, but also their own personal freedom and that of their families.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
this is a very important period. And one of the things that we will be doing in March is we'll be having a group called Magpie. It's a duo, Greg Artsner and Terry Leonino will be performing Sword of the Spirit at Park Church on March 16th from 7 to 9. It's a free concert. It's sponsored by the Elsie Brown Fund. And it's about John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. But when you think of it, that was also part of this whole story. You know, Brown and his men sought the end of slavery. And, you know, this was something that, you know, had been
Yeah.
really working its way into people's awareness and consciences from
I
the
don't quite.
1700s.
I know that. Yeah, I had some artifacts from John Brown Ferry from what happened.
Yes.
I'm not quite clear as to what John Brown, what happened there. What exactly?
Well, John Brown was born in Torrington, Connecticut.
Okay.
His family moved very early to Ohio. His father was Owen Brown, and his father was opposed to slavery. And John Brown, at a very early age, witnessed a young boy who was enslaved being beaten with a shovel, and that affected him greatly. He really became determined to fight against slavery. And when you basically had a civil war happening in Kansas prior to the Civil War. In the 1850s, settlers in Kansas were fighting over whether or not Kansas would be a free state or would be a slave state. And Brown went out there. Some of his sons had moved out there. He moved out there to help them, and they engaged in that fighting. And then later, Brown and some of his supporters, well, they did a number of things. They actually freed a number of slaves, went into Missouri, a slave state, brought slaves out of there and brought them actually up to Michigan, where the former slaves were transferred into free soil in Canada. But he decided that to strike a real blow against slavery, he would seize with his followers the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry in Virginia and use that to instigate a slave rebellion. So one of his, actually there were two other, I think it was John Cook, who was from the Haddam area, and Aaron Dwight Stevens from Norwich. His father was the choir master at the First Congregational Church. They were among those men. And of course the thing failed. Brown was executed, but what happened was it really was one of the factors in bringing about the Civil War. And ironically, the end of slavery. So in a way, John Brown and his men really did succeed in that. The DAR chapter, the Faith Trumbull chapter, has some very important relics of Aaron Dwight Stevens, his family.
Right, and I was going to mention, now that COVID is over and the museum, the Faith Trumbull Chapter Museum, is going to reopen pretty soon for spring. I hope that people come to visit the museum and see these artifacts. And being the 130th anniversary of the Faith Trumbull Chapter, I think you would enjoy taking a tour of
it's a fabulous
the museum there.
It's a fabulous collection.
Yeah.
So you have a number of Aaron Dwight Stevens' personal possessions. Stevens, I think, grandfather was in the Revolution. So there's a definite link there.
Oh, okay.
And then I think his father or some other member of the family was in the War of 1812. Aaron Dwight Stevens actually fought in the Mexican War in the 1840s. So you have his pocket watch, you have his ring, you have letters and photographs of Stevens, in a case in the museum, which are precious, and a lot of his hair that was cut, I guess, shortly before he was executed.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Many people regard Stevens as being a martyr for liberty.
Yeah. What year was this? This was before
1860 is when he was executed.
Okay, so that was right before the Civil War.
You see, the irony is that, well, one of the fascinating facts is that on March 5th, the Harper's Ferry raid took place October 16th through 18th. Brown was captured and
October 16th through 18th.
1859.
1859.
Brown was executed on December 2nd. Dwight Stevens, as they called him, Dwight Stevens had been so badly shot up that they thought he was going to die.
By who? Who was
By the Virginia militia.
Oh,
that came to Harper's Ferry.
I'm sure they didn't like his idea.
No, they didn't like. No, not at all. But but Stevens had a beautiful baritone voice. His whole family were musicians. His voice was spoiled by the rifle shots, but because they thought he was going to die, apparently you don't execute someone who's going to die anyways. They nursed him back to health so they could execute a healthy young man on March 16th, 1860. The day after he turned 29 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really... so March 16th, when we have the concert by Magpie, this duo, March 16th will be the 164th anniversary the execution of Aaron Dwight Stevens.
Oh, wow.
So it's appropriate.
I think we only have a couple minutes left.
Oh no!
Yeah. Went
Well,
by
it's-
pretty quickly.
It's very
And-
exciting.
yeah,
The
yeah.
whole, concept of freedom stemming from the American
And that
Revolution.
it's not free. Freedom isn't free.
No.
Yeah,
And people have paid a very high price.
right. So hopefully we can get involved and celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So, all right. Thank you, Dale, for joining me
Sure,
today.
thank you.
And thank you for watching my show. Thank you.
Was that 30 minutes?
Yeah, when she stood
Wow.
up.